Rhyolite. Such a perfect patina on rhyolite, for this was all dark army green, dark burnt sienna brown, I think. Definitely patinas, light brown and that chalky green. It was a nice flint though when it was made. This is a rhyolite bonanza. Now I want to show you something, and all my thanks out there. This is going to be neat. I'm going to make the criteria for this giveaway a trade. Now listen carefully. I'm going to go through these, and there's a handful of smokers that are going to move out the door as I do my inventory here on IndianTrace. You can see there's not a bad point in this group. Rhyolite bonanza for sure. Now, all my thanks for a trade that came in. See, this is the kind of stuff I like to trade. Now, whatever is in your heart, whatever's in your mind you want to trade, the way you can enter as we go through these here is you state what you're willing to trade for what I put up. I'm always trying to do something different, something fun, for the sake of sharing, trading, keeping the, I think, enthusiasm for number one, the support historically, for saving these Indian artifacts and for sharing them from here to California across the country. But here's a trade that came in. Just opened it today. And I always am willing to consider trading old American silver. Favorite of mine, I don't metal detect. And I've never even imagined having such a good collection of it now. As you all know, this is about an ounce right here, as a Morgan goes. Fantastic piece. Appreciate it, and he knows who I'm talking to. Then, of course, he threw in a couple Benjamins. My goodness, nothing wrong with that. And old American silver does involve quarters and dimes and what have you. So here's the criteria. Now, the last giveaway I just sort of had to do, and those look great. Old American silver is great with me. But it could be anything in your heart. As we go through these, the rules still stand there. Everything that floats off to my right, I'm going to keep. And everything that floats off to my left, yep, you got it, is up on the table. Now, this is going to be in light of the spirit of the Indian, because they were always up for a good trade. Did you know that? The North American Indian, if you came in and you were a trader, it was all about trade. They were up for a good trade. So I wanted to do this in that spirit. Not necessarily a question you'll have to answer or sort of competition, but just, you know, what's ever in your heart that you think makes a good trade. Or you can tell me, hey, I got a picture of something I want to trade you, and we'll figure out a way to exchange it. Let's move forward here. So as I go through these, I've already thought through them, and it's great rhyolite. It's a rhyolite bonanza. I found this at Opening Sands. It's always been a favorite point of mine. So I'm going to keep that in my collection. I have a lot of favorites, like this, found at the Archaic. My hands are so red I went out today. Found a bit, had to finish off the cove. They are harvesting it. Look at that. Look at that Marl Mountain. Against my red. I don't like the red contrast. That's why I put it on charcoal gray. And I will state one more time for those of you who are click happy and just clicking through how you can get some of this great rhyolite from the Yohari Mountains here in North Carolina. I probably pronounced it wrong. Here's a great Guilford. Nice point. That's going to start over on my left. And here's one just to start to get your interest going. This piece I found at Back Pass probably 4 years ago. Banded rhyolite. It's a great piece right here. Look at the relief on the back. But it is going over to my left. So I have to stir the pot and make the trade worthwhile. And, you know, if you go into any tribe, from here to Ohio to Missouri, you guys all know, and you had good trade goods, whether it was glass beads or whatever you had, knives, they would bring things forward and present them to you as something that they were willing to trade. So this is going to be fun. I've never seen it done on YouTube. We're going to do some trading. Let's look at these two. Here's a great point right here. I found it F properties. It's going over to my left. Here's a point. I know I found this at the Falcon. I've always liked it. It's been a really interesting type of point right here, so I'm going to keep that. And we'll just put it on over there. Don't want this to take too long. Look at this. Strong Morrow Mountain. Found at Beaver Point. Since I thought through it, just to save time, I know which sides they're going to go to and what have you as I look through all these. A point from the Mecca, or from Mecca. It's got a little bit of cortex on there. This is rhyolite, a rhyolite bonanza. Stone Mountain right here. So these are some of my, of course, from my display box, but I haven't done inventory on many of these. Look at the difference in the rhyolite. In, I don't know, some of these in 3 years maybe. Now remember, here's a good idea. I will always be open to consider old American silver for trade. And it works out in terms of monetary value if you really have that, and I don't have so much. But I will consider artifacts. I'll consider things like that. So we're getting a group built up here, and we'll have to get a couple more over in that pile. Look at this Morrow Mountain right here. Found at the Archaic. It's a nice piece. It's going to go right over in that group. Rhyolite. I'm hoping it looks like the natural light's doing a good job of justifying this stuff. Really interesting point here because they just couldn't get a little bit of that off. But that's all right with me. It made for a really stellar piece. But I've got a season coming up here, and there's a lot of dirt. And when the water comes, I'm going to find a lot of more great points. And so I've realized real quick, this came from Stonehill. What a great piece. And it is moving left. I've thought through this. So we'll just go with that so far. We've got a good group here open for trade. Open for trade. Trade goods. It's just going to be a rhyolite bonanza, but I'll probably subtitle it about something that had to do with trade. All right, let's see up here. I have a bunch of pieces left that I have been thinking about. I found this piece, a little bit of cortex on there. The same exact time I found this piece right here. Look at that. Almost the same location. Pretty much the same location, I mean about 20, 30 yards from each other. Probably the same person made those. I mean, just look at that. Will you? Just look at that. Just favorite points, and that happens. You get favorite pieces and favorite points, excuse me. Here's a point from Notchville. Rhyolite. Real bonanza today. Try to spark your interest in and seeing what kind of skin you have in the game and what you're willing to trade. I think that's probably a fun thing. Now, it could be anybody out there, and you never know. But you say, hey, I've got this. Are you willing to trade? And, you know, a person can always say, no, I'm not interested in that. Or, yeah, man, that's perfect trade. And so it's all about human relationships. Look at how red my hands are. It's hot out today. I went out for a little while. Nice point right here from Notchville, too. That's a bunch of rhyolite. But that's a bunch of rhyolite. And that's a bunch of rhyolite. We're going to add to it, guys. Not a huge group, but a good group. Real high quality, at least in my opinion. That's why they made the grade for the display box. Look at this. A little bit of inclusions in this rhyolite. Nice piece, though. Nice Morrow Mountain. It's going over to my left. Always loved that piece. It's a nice group so far for trade, isn't it? So we're almost done. Here's another piece from the Falcon. I remember I found that in tobacco about 3 years ago. Really interesting piece to me. So for the time being, I'll just hang on to that. A couple more points right here. One is going, one is staying. It's a nice point, isn't it? It's going over to my left, everybody. And then this one I'm going to keep. And so that completes my inventory. Don't need to be much longer. That's a nice Mar Mountain, isn't it? So Rhyolite Bonanza. So that's a great group. That's going to stay. And there's a couple more in the compartment. All of the points you just saw came out of one bin, one compartment in my display box. And many of you know what the display box is already. All right. Last look at those. Of course, I'm happy as can be. I'm just blessed to be able to find them. And again, thanks for these traded in. He got some great quartz arrowheads, no doubt about it. Some small ones. It's definitely a good trade, right? And love the look of Rhyolite. But what you can take a look at, or what you can, you know, challenge yourself if you want them. If you don't, hey, no big deal. I'm just going to put it up there. If you do, what do you want to trade? What do you got? And, you know, I'm not a big collector. I don't collect a whole bunch of things, but I'm sure there's things that could tempt me. It's just the way it is. And that's the way the Indians were. You know, they'd run back to their home, their teepee or whatever they lived in, longhouse. They'd scrape through it trying to find something good because they knew what you brought was something they wanted, whether it was a real nice knife or something like that. When European contact began, it wasn't all bad. There were some good times, you know. So there's a great look at it, everybody. Rhyolite Bonanza. I'm going to put it up for trade. And, you know, I hope you get these. Appreciate you tuning in to Indian Trace. And that right there, that's Indian Trace. Hope you find out there.